Okay, here is, we're on the sixth part of this series, and there's a lot of, in the reviews that I've looked at, there's a few times I've used the wrong words, trying to pull back my memories and describe things. I don't have a written script. I'm pulling this out of my head. Now we're at a point where I'd like to clean up a couple of things here and present some of my findings and my I can't seem to find a word for it, but under my investigation, some irregularities that need to be cleaned up. Now, mind you, I've already talked about the Queen. I'm going to give you an example. We're going to go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I'm going to show you the, I was able to capture a better picture of the Thutmose III vulture. It's barely over 14 inches wide, but I want you to take a look at the wing. As you see at the right wing, there's a split. There's a ball on the foot, as you see the picture on the right, let's say, claw, the vulture, and just above that you'll see a split. This is that split I made when I was had the vulture in my hand and I'm going up and down and the wings are flapping. And then I'll go on and I want to make a couple of points here, but let's bring that up. Here's the vulture, there's that rip right above that right claw with that ball. Now I'm reading from their page at the Metropolitan about the vulture pictorial. It says geography from Egypt, Upper Egypt, Thebes, Wadi, on and on. Tomb of the three foreign wives of Thutmose III, medium gold sheet. I may have inadvertently said the four foreign wives of Thutmose III, but you know, you got to give me a little bit of slack there, because there's a lot of things I have in my mind and I'm trying to speak and share those with you, and I draw in a word from somewhere out there that's going to describe the next object. But nevertheless, there is that vulture, and they give the credit line here to how they acquired it. Fletcher Fund, 1919. How many of these vultures do you think are out there? How many busts of Nefertiti? Obviously we know there's two, based on the story that I've shared with you from what I know. But Fletcher Fund 1919, some things need to be corrected. Now we're going to go work on the mosaic egg. Let's bring that up, see what we've got, and then I'll share some thoughts with you there. Once again, here we have the mosaic egg. Okay, I printed this off. This is from the Royal Collection Trust, England. This is in their own words. Provenance. This is on the mosaic egg. Commissioned by Tsar Nicholas II for Tsarina Alexandra Fedorovna, Eastern, 1914, confiscated by the provisional government, which would have been the Bolsheviks, I would assume. 1917, sold by the Antique Variant, kind of a Russian word here, 1933 for 5,000 rubles. Okay, this is a point that I'm trying to make here. And this is in the Royal Collection Trust's own words. Probably to Armand Hammer, purchased by King George V from Cameo Corner, 1933, 250 pounds in parentheses, probably for Queen Mary's birthday, 26 May. That's it. Royal Collection Trust, probably to Armand Hammer, probably for Queen Mary's birthday. Do you think that they might have that down to a science as to exactly how they got that? I had this egg. In fact, there were some things about it I didn't remember. But there are other things that are coming back. And just like, remember, there are some romanticized descriptions and they're done very well. But as I got to take a look at this egg, some memories were coming back. This was an extraordinary egg. Because when you looked at it from the inside, looking out through the colors of the stones, that's where the beauty was on this, like a stained glass miniature sphere. It's the other thing I wanted to mention too is it did not get past me to maybe experiment on this egg and maybe carve something out. As I remember, I had an implement. Thank God it didn't go any further then. I believe it may take a while to go over this egg, and it probably will never happen because it's sitting over there with their own provenance. I had a tool to dig out one of these jewels, and I think as I was examining this and trying to figure out where I wanted to do this and how I was going to do it, I think I eventually stopped. I don't think I actually removed anything, thank God, but I believe somewhere in the middle of the egg, around the equator, let's call it, there is a mark that I left attempting to, let's say, remove one of these stones. I think that the mark is so slight that it would take some time to find it, but I think it will show a definite attempt to, let's say, disfigure this egg. Thank God, hopefully that never happened. But the other thing that comes into question too is now we've got, since I question that and the deep collection that the Royal Collection Trust has of Faberge stuff from Nicholas II. Remember, we had a whole lot of stuff. There was probably, I'm thinking, maybe 8 to a dozen metal chests, and most of them were a light blue, I believe, color, if not a gray. And then Nicholas, the chest that his uniforms were in, this was a long, flat chest. It was probably 3 feet wide by, oh, I don't know, maybe 4 feet long or so. And I think what it was his uniforms were at the top, stacked, and the trousers were underneath. See, yeah. And so they were overlapped, and as I remember, it didn't take much to mess up everything inside that large flat metal container with his uniforms and get everything messed up by the way they were layered in there. His box, that metal box, was a different colors. I remember 2 distinct colors on the exterior of that box. Now, all the boxes had worn paint down to the metal. So the light gray or blue, or combination of both of them, there was a shiny metal underneath. This was sheet metal. It was, I don't believe it was aluminum. I think it was some kind of a sheet metal. It had a shine or sheen to it, and Nicholas II's uniform container, I believe, was black. And I remember two colors, black and red. And I'm thinking on the very top it had the double-headed eagle insignia on that, where, let's say, the container is black, a large oval red on the center of the box, on top of the black paint, and then the black double-headed insignia there. But anyway, getting to the colonnade clock, let me throw that up there and then see what'll stick with that. Okay, here's a colonnade clock. It's also part of the Royal Collection Trust. Okay, provenance on the colonnade clock, commissioned by Tsar Nicholas II for Tsarina Alexandra Fedorovna, Easter 1910, confiscated by the Provisional Government, I believe that would be the Bolsheviks again, 1917, transferred to the Sunarkom by 1922, Emanuel Snowman, acquired by Queen Mary and given to King George V, 1931. Okay. The point I want to make here is we had the mosaic egg. We also had this gold vulture. Now there's some areas inside the Metropolitan, and it may be a reliquary. We had several reliquaries, and those several reliquaries that I've identified are in the Metropolitan. And if I remember correctly, one of those, the provenance, came from Lord Carnarvon. Well, guess what? I looked up Lord Carnarvon, and there's like about 10 or 12 of them. So, in the time period in which Metropolitan could have acquired these things, it overlaps, I believe, two that I have looked at. You can do your own investigation there, but the point I'm trying to make here is once there is a false record, then how many false records can there be? The reason why I brought up the colonnade clock is clock 80 is it really isn't that familiar, but I have to tell you, I'm claiming about a dozen, and I'm thinking there may be a half to another dozen involved. There's a few that keep coming back. This one not so much, not the colonnade, but the element that I want to stress here, we had the mosaic egg. So, I don't know about the colonnade, but as far as provenance, what do you think I think about provenance at this point? There's so much I want to share with you in another direction, or continuing where I want to go with this. I've got a lot of good stuff to share with you, and I didn't want to spend too much on this because I only want to do a half an hour. Hopefully I can get that out and get a good explanation of what's going on. I don't know how much I've got already here, but well, heck, there's always part 7. Well, let me see what I've got here. This is the jeweled statue of St. George. I'll bring it up after I tell you a little bit about it. What I want you to do is, if you have the opportunity to look at this in a larger picture, the horse's left front leg, there is a jewel, a teardrop jewel there. I think these are rubies, but that's not where I want you to look. where that teardrop is hanging, look at that panel from that the covering on the horse. Look to the rear leg and find the lowest panel there, that flap that's hanging down. You'll notice there's one missing. Okay, now look at it again. That's that lowest flap on the left rear leg. If I have followed this correctly, St. George lived about 300 AD, and there's a lot of statues out there, but only one like this. We had this statue, and I read something about it that locked me in. And the other thing that it prevents a little bit of difficulty is the size of these objects. Being that I was a very young age, and now I'm fully grown, how do I remember how big something was within a few inches? There can be quite a difference now that I'm 3 times larger than I was before. Nevertheless, we had this statue, and the one thing I read was the suit of armor on the image that's on this horse. You can lift up the shield, and there's a face there. And when my brother found that, we both thought, wow, isn't that neat? Look at that. There's a little face behind there. And it describes that. Although, just for throwing this out there, the face of the image on there is not George himself, but it is of the artist that made this statue. I'm not sure if this is a reliquary or what. It may be, but I'm going to find something back to 300 AD. That's a pretty good toss there. Nevertheless, we had this. And the other thing I want to mention is, I believe I had that ruby that hung from that rear panel on the left up until about 3 years ago. That and a disc off the Monty Mosque reliquary, and that's another story that we'll get into. But if I still had the disc from the Monty Mosque reliquary, and I still had this ruby, I didn't know, I don't know where I got it. I didn't remember until all this came forward. And then I realized some of these things I plucked here and there, and things that have been with me all my life. If I had these 2 items, the teardrop and the Monty Mosque reliquary medallion, the disc, I wouldn't be making this video. I wouldn't have to. But here we are. So we're pressing on. 2 other thoughts on the St. George small statue there is when we as kids looked at this thing, it obviously is beautiful. I don't know if this image that I've captured will do it any justice, but the one thing that we noticed when we were kids is the pink legs on this horse image, this little statue. We thought, what's going on with that? Pink legs. You know, we were pretty much on the cowboys and Indians in the day, and, you know, pink leg, where'd they come up with that? And the second thing is the little face that's underneath the shield on that suit of armor. It's also a shade of pink as well. It's not flesh colored. It is I don't believe it's the same shade of pink, and I think it's a variable pink on the legs of the horse, but nevertheless, it is a shade of pink on that face. And I just thought I'd throw that out. Pressing on. Not quite done with St. Wenceslaus. Wait till you hear this. we had three things in this picture, and at least three, and I'll share those with you. I'll bring that picture back, but I've been waiting days to present this. The three things we had the crown, we had the pillow, and believe it or not, we had that skull too. And it really didn't lock in until a series of thoughts drawing back to try to bring this forward, because there were some things there that it was very difficult to bring those three things into focus. The one thing that locked me in is that pillow there. That pillow, if you look at that, it's not level. It's a ramp for that skull. And forgive me, I'm not a theologian, and I may be pronouncing the saint's name incorrectly, but that's a ramp. It's a base for that skull to project the image out to the worshipers there. That ramp pillow, on the side that you can't see, all the way around that pillow are these little decorative loops. They're red and gold and maybe a white or something like that. But one of those loops came undone. I mean, it got out about that far. And that's on the side you can't see. And that's what locked me on. I remember one of those loops coming undone and just being stretched out. Maybe it was dangled, maybe it was just pulled out so that the looping where it was secured had came out. Nevertheless, it came out, which locked me on, and then I remembered. Then I remembered the skull. The skull was kind of there, and then the crown was there. The skull was the last thing to remember. The crown, I had to take some time to look at that, but and I think I have another image of that. But it's nevertheless that we had that, and then when we found the skull, we didn't think it was real. Of course, we didn't think anything was real. But then the skull was inside this, just as it is there, inside that semi-transparent nylon mesh enclosure. What I remember about that nylon mesh, it was very cutting on the fingers. It was not soft at all. It was a very coarse mesh material. But we had this as one of those things, and that the box that the cardinal is carrying there, that's holding the ramp pillow, that's holding the skull, we may have had that box too, but I remember three other things, and that is the pillow, the ramp pillow, the thread, that little tassel or whatever you want, decoration that came off, the crown, and the skull. Now, if we had all four of those pieces with that box, none of it was stacked properly to say this is how it was supposed to go. They were all in the same container, but placed in there and not as in a presentation storage. Nevertheless, we had these items, and not so much about the box that he's carrying. Once again, here it is, and I have a thought to share with you too. In the beginning, the very first video, as they say, was Confucius, even the longest journey begins with the first step. I know how unbelievable all this stuff is. But the one thing I had to throw out there first of all, of everything, is, and I could have left it at that, was just one item, and that's the Bust of Nefertiti. Everything else would have saved me a lot of work. But just admitting that, and throwing that forward to all of you that we had that. I knew that that was going to be a big commitment. But the truth is out there. I'm speaking the truth as best I know it. That information is out there somewhere, and somebody's going to find it, because I don't know if I can find it. Because this investigation has taken its toll on me in so many different ways. But again, I know how unbelievable it is, but put yourself in my shoes just for a minute. Would you have gone as far as I did with the information that you know, that I know, which there's still a lot out there? Would you have admitted to as much as I did? Would you have stuck on one piece? One Faberge egg? If I was going to admit anything, I was going to admit everything and bring it forward. You see, I don't have anything to be afraid of, because I'm telling the truth as best I know it, as best I can put it together. And I'm sharing that with you. And somebody out there is going to find something that's going to start this investigation again and acknowledge that I'm right. And then the second thing will happen, and then the third, and then the fourth, and then the fifth. Finally, somebody's going to say, 95% of what I'm saying is the truth. And the other 5% is just I've just described it, or the events incorrectly. The fact that we had this stuff is true, as best I can remember it. It's been an extremely difficult thing to do, and there's a lot more to share with you, and I just can't wait to do that. We're probably cruising in on close to 30 minutes. I'll review this and see where we're at. We are at 27 minutes at this point, and time for me to just keep running at my mouth there will burn up the next minute or so. I can't put anything else in here that'll keep it under 30 minutes, so we're done for this segment right here. And thanks for your time, and don't forget to turn your volume down. Hey, we got a lot of good stuff to come in. Later.